Here we are. We are live, Shawn. So how about this? This is our
Wonderful.
first. This is our first LinkedIn live, and you might not realize this, but I have a first pancake theory. Are you a pancake fan?
I am, but before I fully answer that, I'm on the LinkedIn and it says starting soon still.
Okay.
I'm on as attendee and it's not coming up.
All right. Well, let's see. Do, 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 do. You. All right. All right. So, Shawn, I think we are live. So it came up for me. I just heard my voice in an echo about first pancakes.
Okay. Well, sorry for the technical difficulties. If you are
No,
watching this and you are on, this is our first LinkedIn live, so we're making sure it's working out
yes,
technical glitches.
this is our first LinkedIn Live pancake. So as I was sharing, when we make pancakes, usually the first pancake we put on the griddle is not the best one, right? So the griddle isn't all that warm yet. It might come out a little funny looking, but still, it's a worthwhile pancake. We got to do the first one to make all the subsequent pancakes in the batch. So we are doing our first pancake here on a very important day, Shawn. Very exciting day. So today is what day? Will you share with folks?
Yeah, so finally, after much anticipation, much having to be patient, and all the back end work, today is finally our book launch day. So that's also known as the official release date. And what that means is that the book is now available wherever books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Indie Books, Pal Books, wherever you buy your books, your favorite bookstore. The book is now available for you to order. Before, it was only available on pre-order status on some sites, namely Amazon. So today it's officially live. We've put it out into the world, and it's now accessible to everyone. So we're really proud of that, and really happy this day is finally here.
Yeah, congratulations, Shawn. It's been such a honor to work with you on this project and bring a reasonable voice in to inclusion and diversity and equity, especially during these times where a lot of many DE and I efforts we've seen the pushback. But I think this is exactly the moment when we rise up to meet the challenge, because workplace culture is not ideal. There's a recent Gallup poll around where we are with overall engagement, and it doesn't paint a very pretty picture. We need to find ways to come together and improve work culture, and our book is all about that. And we got a little bit of the who's who to endorse the book, like Mel Robbins and Brad Johnson and David Smith wrote a beautiful foreword for the book. But there are a lot of noteworthy people that are in the work culture space, the DE and I space, that were gracious enough to blurb our book. And I know you are filled with gratitude for them and to them, as am I. So as we say often, together we go far, and we wouldn't be able to go as far as we've already gone, even on day one, half day in, without their assistance and help. So to everyone that helped create this project, a lot of just heartfelt thanks.
Yeah, and Michael, I'm glad you actually are starting off and brought that up, to thank our supporters. So our endorsers, absolutely, Brad and David, who wrote the foreword, but also all the people that Michael and I interviewed for the book, men, women, as well as culture, DEI, and HR leaders. We want to get their perspectives on allyship, and what they could do and how we could help our workplaces develop and identify more allies. So that whole process was very eye-opening. I know for both of us, and this book would not have been the same. It wouldn't be the same book without the folks who allowed us a glimpse into their lives and gave us, just share some of their experiences and their insights from their own journeys. And so our interviewers, our endorsers, and then certainly Amplify Publishing Group, just all want to give a shout out to them as well. They've been a great partner on this journey. So thank you for partnering with us to bring this book to the world.
That's awesome. So you'll hear me say our title multiple times during this live. It's the 5 levels of male allyship. Again, as Shawn mentioned, you can get it wherever you find your books. And we do have some background information we'd like to share with you. And so, Shawn, I'm going to turn it over to you because you've been kind enough to put together some slides to guide us through this conversation so people can better understand what this book is all about. Who is it for, if you will? What's it for? And how it can not only benefit men, but really everyone in work cultures, anyone responsible for creating better culture at work. We wrote this book for you.
Yes, perfect. So let's first start off by defining allyship. We never want to assume that we're all on the same page because we have different definitions of a lot of things. So oftentimes people think, well, what an ally is a mentor, or an ally is an advocate or a sponsor, and it's a little bit of everything mixed in. But this is one of the best definitions I've seen, the most succinct definitions. It's from leanin.org back in 2021. And they define it as an active and consistent effort to use your privilege and power to support and advocate for people with less privilege. So the words in this definition are very timely. And the reason we wrote this book targeting or supporting and focusing on men is because the vast majority of decision-making positions of power still today in our organizations are held by men. And so men often have the ability to exert power. They have maybe some form of privilege, but they have a tremendous opportunity to influence others. And so allyship is simply using that privilege and power to support and advocate for anyone else, whether it's women, whether it's people of color, whether it's LGBTQ folks, folks with disabilities, whoever it is, to advocate and support those folks. So it is a bit different than mentorship, which are, a mentor helps you in your current career, and a sponsor helps you get to your next job. And so advocates for you when you're not in the room. So an ally, though, is really more of a broader term, and I like to think of it, they're with you for the whole journey. So that's just a definition to help level set all of us.
Yeah, well, it definitely speaks to that whole concept that together we go far. We need people that are consistently there for us, and it's that transformational action that allies can provide to people that can be so wonderful for work cultures.
Yeah. So, and Michael, we could both speak to this one because this one really hits home for us. So one thing we want to share with you all, and Michael and I actually first met back in 2020, right, Michael?
Yeah, like 2019, 2020, I think. Yeah, around that time.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago when you think about it, but we met through a shared organization that we were both part of. And what we realized is we're both avid cyclists, just independently, So, and to make things even crazier, on top of that, Michael rode his bike across the country in 2022.
Yep.
Yep. So independent of me, he rode his bike across the country. I have always had that on my bucket list. So since I was in my 20s, I thought, what a cool way, to see the US and experience our world and meet great people and all that. And so I just completed my own cross-country journey last fall in 2025. So not only are we avid cyclists, but we also both rode our bikes across the country, which is wild if you think about it.
Nuts. Yeah, because considering that not many people actually do that. So when you think about it, Shawn, like if you had a Venn diagram of people who've rode their bike across the country, and people who are interested in better work culture, and people who are bold enough to write a book, that Venn diagram doesn't overlap in many many spots. There's only a few people. We
Right.
might be. I'm not going to say we're the only two, but I don't think you can fill a stadium with the type of people that fit in all three of those camps. So I'm glad that the universe, in its way, brought us together prior to the pandemic, so we can put out this book now, because I think now is the right time to put out this book.
Absolutely. So we thought it would be fun, in addition to our research on the book, to add in a theme of cycling throughout the book. Given our backgrounds and our areas of interest. So we did that, and so in the book you'll see several analogies to cycling. We'll talk about pelotons and how important it is to have your own peloton. We talk about headwinds and tailwinds and crosswinds. And each chapter, actually, we point out some common headwinds for each level of allyship. So this slide summarizes the overall headwinds in general when you're looking at the book as a whole. So we all know there's a chronic lack of allies for women and people of color. And as I mentioned, the vast majority of leadership, decision-making positions of power are held by men still today, 2026. So we need more allyship. We all do. Men need allies as well. But particularly women and people of color need more allies. We also found that many men are not the allies they think they are. Some great data on this is from our friends Brad Johnson and David Smith, who again wrote the foreword for our book. They had a Harvard article that they wrote about this topic, about men not being the allies that they think they are. And so that's a headwind that's working against us. We also found that some men experience bro club pressure to support other men. So that is still alive and well today. And so many men don't step up as allies because of pressure they may be getting from their peers, their colleagues, their communities. And then Michael, feel free to jump in anytime here if you want to add anything. Another general overall headwind that we discovered is that we're all subjected to entrenched gender and cultural norms on our behavior. So we have certain beliefs about how men and women should act in society. We also hold many biases and stereotypes about how we should show up in the workplace. And so we all are working against those entrenched cultural norms on our behaviors. And then finally, and I think it's maybe a little bit cut off on your slide. It's on my slide. I can't quite see the bottom there. So hopefully you all can see it. But there are competency and performance biases about women's performance in the workplace. And so if you put all this together, there's quite a few headwinds that often keep men from wanting to step up as an ally, or thinking they can step up as an ally, or taking that courageous first step.
I think that so many great points there, Shawn. And I will say, as the white guy on the screen, there's a myth that, like, just because you're a white dude, you're competent. And competence and incompetence runs the gamut. It impacts all of us. We can make those type of conclusions, in which over the last year, some of those conclusions were at least people were trying to make them. But that's not the case. One other headwind that's not on the slide that we all deal with is time. Allyship takes time, but I like to think it's an investment, because by investing in others, we actually save time downstream. But that's hard when we feel like we're doing and going and rushing around. To take the time to be an ally we don't feel like we actually have that discretionary amount of time. But through our research, through our writing, and our own personal experience, we've come to conclude that investing time up front in allyship can pay tremendous dividends downstream.
Yeah. So there's a few headwinds working against us, but as you can see the slide that Michael just pulled up here, there is a ray of hope, and there's actually several points of good news. the data shows that most men actually want to be better allies and more inclusive leaders, but often they don't know what to do. They don't have the right skill sets, or they don't have enough support to step into allyship. So, but the good news is most men, most do want to be better allies. So I find that very encouraging. I was happy when we came across that data that, this is really good news. And so that actually was part of the reason we wanted to write this book, because we found that because of these reasons, men need support. Men need help. And this is not a blame and shame game. And actually, Michael and I are very aware of the approach we took was to not, blame and shame men, because it's not men's fault. Oftentimes, men don't have good role models, or they just simply don't have the right skill set, or again, they don't have enough support. So we wanted to help provide a framework to support them in these efforts.
Yeah, I know so many men that want to be better allies. Again, as Shawn mentioned, it's the reason why we wrote the book, The 5 Levels of Male Allyship, that is officially being released today. So this is a book that meets men where they're at and helps us all along. So, and we learned a ton through our research, right, Shawn?
Yeah. Do you want to speak to this, Michael?
Yeah. So what we learned through speaking with many men who serve as allies, but also across the whole spectrum of the archetypes that we created for the book, is that any ally journey is a bit fluid. There are learning on ramps and off ramps. Really depends sometimes on what situation we find
Mhm.
ourselves in, depending upon proximity to uh, potential people to offer allyship to, level of trust, familiarity, and we've also found that men to that point can overlap. So it's not just one approach. We have what we believe is one of the first allyship assessments in the book. Shawn, on her LinkedIn profile, I think last night, posted the QR code, or maybe early this morning. I'm never sure on LinkedIn as far as when things get posted. I never really look at the timestamp, but you can take our assessment. It takes about 3 minutes, and you'll learn your primary approach to allyship. But that doesn't mean that's static. Things are quite fluid, and we might travel from allyship archetype to another one, again, depending on the circumstance.
Mhm.
So, and we all, sort of skipping down to number 4, we all do receive allyship differently. So we try to underscore the need to show up in the way the situation and the person we're interacting with, or the people that we're interacting with, desire. So it's just not a one size fits all approach. We need to be agile. We need to be versatile in our thinking around and our action around allyship. And you know, what things came up too is that we heard from a couple guys that, maybe some people are not worthy of allyship because maybe you extend yourself, you put yourself out there to offer assistance and offer support, but then the person on the other side doesn't necessarily put in the work, right? And that can come up when you think about being a champion or a sponsor or even a mentor. Anytime we form any type of partnership, it definitely takes all parties to show up and put in the effort. So we definitely heard from some folks that maybe not everyone is worthy of allyship. Shawn and I would probably submit to people that we as humans, um, deep within us, all deserve support, all
Mhm.
deserve allyship, and we start there, um, and we don't prejudge if one should get allyship or receive allyship or not.
Yeah. Well said, Michael. So this is a nice overview for you. So let's just quickly walk through the 5 levels of allyship, and then tell you a little bit about them. So level 1 is the traditionalist. The characteristic in common with men who are at level 1 is generally resistant. Resistance because maybe they're fearful of losing their identity. Maybe they don't feel relevant, in this crazy, fast-paced world that we have. Maybe they have certain beliefs. Maybe they don't quite buy into gender parity or DEI efforts or inclusion even. So for different reasons, men at level 1 are generally resistant. That is the common trait. Or adverse is another adjective you could use. Level 2 is the armchair ally. So men at this level tend to be in their comfort zone. They don't, they may have a limited belief, limited perspective. And, to them, work is good. Life is good. So they don't really feel pain. They don't see a need to really put themselves out there or put skin in the game, and step up as an ally because life is good. And they're very comfortable in their comfort zone. And there's actually, I should mention too, there's two types of men, two groups of men at level 1. There are also two groups of men at level 2, which we do outline in the book. We talk about the differences in those groups. And so level 2 general characteristic is comfort zone. But those men could be a little bit ambivalent about their beliefs and attitudes around allyship. Level 3, we call the toe dipper. So Michael and I both know, I've met many men at this level. I've certainly had male bosses and colleagues, particularly bosses, I should say, who have been toe dippers. So this type of allyship behavior is generally performative. So maybe it's a colleague of yours, a male colleague, who comes out in March on International Women's Day and says that, I support women, and maybe they show up to a International Women's Day celebration, and they verbally advocate on that day, but then you don't see that advocacy anytime the rest of the year. So, but they came out on International Women's Day and was an advocate. So men who are level 3 generally it's generally more of self-serving behavior, and it's mostly performative. So one key adjective here, though, is these men are aware of inequities in the workplace. They may be aware of racial and gender, inequities, but the behavior that they do show as an ally is generally performative. So we give lots of examples and stories about men in each of these levels throughout the book. So level 4, if you make it to level 4, and again, as Michael mentioned, these levels are not necessarily sequential. So men don't just start at 1, 2, and then go 2, 3, 4, 5. They may jump. They may start at 1 and then maybe become a toe dipper. And then from a toe dipper, they move up quickly to a level 5. So it's not sequential, and they can jump around depending on the situation. But men at level 4 are eager to learn. They realize there's inequities. They realize people are in need of allyship, and they want to help. But going back to what we said earlier, they either don't have the tools or they don't have the support to do so, but they're eager. So these are emerging allies, and they tend to be active in their allyship, but still they need some support and some help. And then level 5 is the champion. So these are the men that have a we win attitude. It's about we, not me. They focus on the greater good, and they are a full-on advocate, and they are all in. But even champions, I found it interesting, Michael, the champions the men who identified as champions that we interviewed, I found it interesting because every single one of them said that they could do more, and they felt they could do more, and they felt they could improve. And that was surprising to me because I think there's a lot of men, at the levels 1 through 4, and less so probably at level 5. We certainly need more men at level 5, but even those level 5 men, all of them felt that they had more work to do.
I loved hearing that as well, Shawn. And as your co-author, I will say that I've found myself in each one of these levels throughout my career, depending on the circumstances. And so that's the tone of our book, is that we want to meet men where they're at. And as Shawn said, we put the blame and shame practices that largely came up over the last few years to the side. And really, we want to work and bring more men into the inclusion conversation. If I can, Shawn, just to share a little bit of the history with this archetype profile, if we
Yeah.
can, if we take a few minutes, is that back in 2016, what I felt as someone who was in the work culture space for so long as an executive and now as a coach, I felt we weren't trying to recruit men. This was back in 2016. And like any good marketer, we tried to segment the market. You know, we want to try to talk to different segments in different ways. So we don't take any one group or one population as a monolith. So I came up with 7 different archetypes. For the book, we boiled that down to 5 to make it a little bit more straightforward and concise. And so, what I'll say is, as a leader, I've been in all 5 levels, and all depends on the circumstances. What we're trying to do is bring awareness. Once you have awareness and accept that, you know, it's like this, then you can take really thoughtful, intentional action. And that's how, you know, Shawn, I can stay with this and just do this slide. We can take thoughtful action. That's what we're about, to move the needle. So we're trying to targets level, you know, 3 through 5, that toe dipper who has that level has so much potential, to the champion, which I would agree, they all feel they can do more. And we still want to work with levels 1 and 2. What I found back in 2016 is that there are some men in level 1 that are highly resistant. There's the term I think has been used, toxic masculinity. And a lot of people who might be skewing right in our archetypes, we're trying to prove that guy was wrong and they were right. And we just would battle and battle. You're wrong, we're right. You're wrong, we're right. No, we're right, you're wrong. And some of the pushback we saw in 2025 that a lot of companies and universities caved to, although many companies did not, was all around, like, that pushback was from that one particular guy. Our feeling is we're going to let that guy be. We're not going to spend our precious calories and precious energy trying to prove that we're right and they're wrong.
Mhm.
Because there's a whole bunch of men who want to participate more fully, in a deeper way, in a more meaningful way. We want to spend our time and attention focus on those guys to bring them along. That's how we create critical mass in companies. That's how we tip the scales, right? And we get momentum. And that's how we improve work for everyone, not just someone.
Mhm. And Michael, just one more one comment I want to add to that is, uh, the lower levels, levels 1 and 2. We've heard from men who saw themselves at these levels either now or in the past, and they said, and we said, you know, what would you recommend? What would help you move up levels? Was one of our questions, and their response was, well, if I see someone that I expect, respect, and admire stepping up, then I would feel more, have more courage and feel more comfortable stepping up as an ally. And so oftentimes, if they see men at higher levels as allies, they would step up. Also, we have good old FOMO, fear of missing out. So none of us wants to be left behind, right? None of us wants to be part of that out group. You know, we want to be, we want to keep up with things. So oftentimes FOMO is very powerful. And so again, if those lower level men see levels in toe dipper, emerging ally, champion levels 3 through 5 stepping into allyship, that also will give them permission and give them much more comfort in doing so themselves. So here's the good news, particularly for men. This actually applies women too. We need women allies as well. Another comment we probably
We need
should
everyone to be an ally, right, Shawn? Yeah.
right. We need everyone to be allies, and we all need allies. But again, because of just our society and leadership positions, we particularly need male allies to get anywhere near gender or racial parity in our workplaces. But so there's lots of data that show that when men step into allyship, there's a whole host of benefits that they can receive. For example, from an emotional intelligence standpoint, they become more empathetic. They have more self-awareness. It enhances their interpersonal skills. They become better listeners. They build their own confidence. They even grow their own networks. Having larger networks, they gain, precious knowledge from those that they're being an ally for. It helps grow their own careers. Psychological safety, we have a chapter in the book where we speak to psychological safety and how you can create safety. Very simple, practical things you can do every day to create psychological safety in the workplace. You don't always have to be in a leader role to do that, by the way. But helping create those safe, inclusive cultures is another benefit of allyship. Building better teams. As our book, actually, the subtitle of our book, I should point out, is A Guide to Building Better Teams Through Real Inclusion. So stepping up into allyship can help you build those better teams. It helps your company's bottom line. And probably the loftiest benefit, I would say, is even being a better husband and father has been linked to allyship.
Yeah, I love that, Shawn. So I'm calling out all girl dads out there. As a girl dad, like, you can step up and be a great ally. Think about impressing your daughters. If you have teenage daughters, you need to do everything in your power to impress your teenagers. And so this is a great moment to step up and become an even better ally. And you mentioned creating safety. Here on LinkedIn and through the internet, we often reference the Google study about workplace culture and what makes great workplace cultures great. And they pointed right to psychological safety. So when we feel safe and grounded, we can perform better. We can perform up to our potential. And with today's uncertainty, every day is uncertain. That's true since the beginning of time, but we feel our uncertainty in our way right now. The world's moving pretty quickly. There's a lot to be concerned about. There's a lot grabbing at our focus and attention. So it's natural for so many people not to feel safe or not to feel grounded. And so through allyship, we can create those cultures, those environments that allow people to perform up to expectations. Without allyship, we don't really step into our fullness, our full potential. And we, from a very crass business perspective, we leave money on the table if we don't lean into this. And so one of the best ways to start, again, I mentioned this earlier, Shawn had a great post that she put up on her LinkedIn profile. If you're not connected with Shawn, please connect with her here on LinkedIn. But you can get through this QR code and through our book, you can get your own understanding of your primary approach to allyship. 22 questions. It takes 3 minutes. It's completely free. You get to say it's a report would be an overstatement. So I don't want to say it's a whole report, but you get a profile of your primary allyship approach. And then you also get some tips on how you might move the needle forward. So I'd encourage anyone who's interested in becoming an ally. This assessment is not just for guys. Anyone can take it, and a whole bunch of people have already taken it so far. So my encouragement is to start here. This is the first step to gain some awareness. And then we have over 60 other tips and suggestions on how you can become a stronger ally in our book, The 5 Levels of Male Allship.
Yeah, well said, Michael. I have to say, one thing that we did that was fun is we created videos for each level. So depending on where you fall, so you take this assessment, again, it's only a few minutes, you take it and you'll get a snapshot of where you fall on the 5 levels of allyship spectrum. But then depending on what level you're at, you will receive a different video from Michael and I. So we customize the videos to each level, and we provide a couple strategies as well for each level that you could implement today. And so that was kind of fun doing those videos. So you'll see both of us, you'll see videos of both of us after you take your assessment.
All right. So, here's the big, the payoff. Here's the cover of the book. That little circle there, that's the Mel Robbins blurb. Again, as I mentioned, Brad Johnson and David Smith did the foreword. excellent forward to our book, and a whole bunch of other who's who were kind enough to give their endorsement to the book. And now you can get it. You can start discovering these 5 levels and start putting like your action into place in your work culture. And it's a great gift for your team members. If you have a Men as Allies affinity group in your corporation, it's a great resource for them as well. And Shawn and I are just excited to bring this work to people, especially now, where we find that our work cultures are struggling, and this is the time to let go of what happened last year and like really rise up and say no emphatically. Work culture matters, and we will take steps to hear and see and appreciate each other better, so we can get more stuff done that can change lives.
And also, what we do, Michael and I are both speakers. We're both been in the inclusion space for a long time. We are more than happy to come in and do a session for your team on this topic, or even a workshop on this topic, to help men. This is a topic that's not often discussed in the workplace, particularly with the 5 segmented levels, with each has different description and archetype. So it's quite unique. So it would be a great thing, a great development opportunity, great leadership development to start the conversation around here, around 5 levels of allyship. And I also wanted to note, since we're on LinkedIn, you should also connect with Michael. But Michael, somehow we forgot to put your website on the slide here. Do you want to share that?
Well, this is part of the first pancake dilemma that I didn't put and we have got real world stuff happening in the background here. My coffee maker is deciding to have a life of its own and making some background noise, but that's how we work nowadays. So my website is Michael O'Brien Shift, SHIFT.com. So you can discover more about like who I am if we don't know each other. But Shawn, I think we did it. We made our first pancake. We did our first LinkedIn Live. And on the day we get to celebrate launching our book out into the world. So again, thank you for having me on this ride with you. And, we keep pedaling towards greater belonging.
Yes, we do. So thank you everyone for watching today. And we look forward to connecting with you, and keep pedaling.
Keep pedaling.
Bye, everyone.